Rite Aid has officially filed for bankruptcy protection as it grapples with escalating debt and lawsuits alleging its involvement in the opioid crisis. And while it's not the first retailer to go through financial troubles, this time may look a little different. Yahoo Finance's Josh Schafer has those details for us. Hey, Josh.
Yeah, Rochelle. So the Rite Aid bankruptcy filing that we got last night on Sunday night is an interesting Chapter 11 filing for several reasons. So first off, there is the traditional retail aspect of this. Rite Aid wants to close some stores. They'll be able to get out of some of those leases via Chapter 11 bankruptcy and write off some of the dead rent that they had been paying on stores that weren't even open anymore throughout this process. But I did speak with some bankruptcy lawyers this morning to sort of better understand this story for us. And Eric Snyder, the chairman of the bankruptcy department at law firm Wilk Oslander, explained to me two key things to look for in this. One that would make this case different is who could really buy Rite Aid. When you think about the antitrust laws that have been so closely tracked recently, you would really only look at CVS and Walgreens. Would that become an antitrust concern if one of those companies wanted to acquire Rite Aid? That's an interesting spin on this. And then you mentioned off the top, Rochelle, that opioid crisis and the lawsuits coming from the opioid crisis. The reason that is so interesting here is because when we go to bankruptcy court, the claimants on then are now going to have to claim separate claims in bankruptcy court. So everyone that was suing Rite Aid to have to do with the opioid crisis now has to file their own claim. And what it does is it puts it under one court, which helps Rite Aid in the sense that instead of going to 50 different states to deal with 50 different cases at minimum, really a lot more, they'll now work through one court, which helps Rite Aid sort of settle this. And one thing that Snyder told me, he's worked in these cases before. He worked on the Purdue Pharma case. He said these claimants are going to be unsecured creditors. Very often in bankruptcy, unsecured creditors do not see the whole dollar come back to them. He said these unsecured creditors might end up getting a total of somewhere in the $100 million. But when you break it down among all the claimants, the people in this opioid crisis are not going to be making out whole, most likely, now that Rite Aid has filed bankruptcy. So Rite Aid using bankruptcy a little bit as a tool here to deal with those court cases.
And obviously, that's something that is quite specific to Rite Aid. But then what will this mean for pharmacies and the sector as a whole?
Yeah, Rochelle, and then when you zoom out and just think about where Rite Aid is in the space, they're the smallest of the big three pharmacies. You see there, Rite Aid really mostly in the Northeast and then on the West Coast. There's not a lot of Rite Aids in the middle of the country, really not any at all on that map that they used in their bankruptcy filing. And you take a look at how many other CVSs there are, how many more Walgreens there are. You've got Walgreens at over 12,000 stores, CVS at over 9,000 stores, and then Rite Aid with just over 2,000 stores. So we're talking about a smaller piece of the pharmacy business. That's something that Rite Aid has really struggled with as it's become smaller over the last couple of years. There's some reports out there saying they've struggled to keep customers because they don't have as many locations. So if you get a subscription at Rite Aid and then you go to move or you go somewhere else around your area, it's harder to find a Rite Aid. So it'll be interesting to see what from their strategy people have liked and what they haven't liked. And then again, getting back to that antitrust discussion that Snyder brought up for us, would CVS or Walgreens even be able to buy the assets? When we talk about bankruptcy, you remember just a couple months ago, Bed Bath & Beyond was able to just be bought out by Overstock.com because retail is such a big space. With pharmacies being so tight and really only a few competitors, you wonder if the FTC would let that acquisition be passed through.
It's true, and you have to wonder if potentially it could end up in meme stock territory. It's a well-known brand. You have a lot of short interest and, of course, a triggering event in a bankruptcy. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Thank you so much. Our very own Josh Schafer.